In April, Prosperity Now's Racial Wealth Divide Initiative hosted 3 listening sessions with nonprofit leaders from across the country with a clear objective. We wanted leaders of color to share the ways that they have shifted program and service delivery and adapted their work in response to the COVID-19 crisis. We quickly learned they are doubling down on existing programs, innovating to take their services virtual, and building for post-pandemic health and economic equity. Even though COVID-19 has exacerbated existing health, employment, income, housing, education challenges their clients face, they are pioneering and resilient. The voices of these leaders and their experiences are captured in our new report, COVID-19, New Crisis, Same Story, highlighting the innovations to racial economic inequity for leaders of color. In this episode, you will meet the leaders behind the scenes of Prosperity Now's Racial Wealth Divide Initiative. They will share with you the highlights of the experiences of the nonprofit leaders they collaborate with across the country, what they have heard and what you can learn about these grassroots and community innovators, and a teaser for each of the 5 upcoming series in this series, where the city-level nonprofits will share how they are advancing racial economic equity solutions, particularly in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. So with that, let's meet the Racial Wealth Divide team at Prosperity Now.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Lillian Singh, and I'm the Vice President of Programs in Racial Wealth Equity, and I co-launched the Racial Wealth Divide Initiative at Prosperity Now in 2015. On the team, I am the bridge. I do this work because I am of and from the communities in which we operate and strive to bridge resources and build strength. I hope my work translates to power for these organizations and communities of color.
Hi, my name is Ebony White. I am one of the Associate Directors on the Racial Wealth Divide Initiative. On the team, I am the balancer. I do this work because when I see people and families suffering from economic injustices and not having a voice into what is happening in their communities, I want to be a voice for them and advocate for solutions that will enable them to not only have a voice, but to have access to resources that would allow for economic mobility and choice.
My name is Kat Gogenauer. I'm the other Associate Director of Racial Wealth Equity on the Racial Wealth Divide Initiative. On the team, I'm the researcher, also known as the nerd. I do this work because I understand firsthand the importance of leveraging data to show that socioeconomic inequity is a result of systems that perpetuate inequity rather than behaviors or choices of individuals. In this work, I use my lived experience as an asset to help communities and decision makers make the case for advancing racial economic justice.
Hi, my name is Sharice Davis. I'm the Program Manager for the Racial Wealth Divide Initiative. On the team, I'm the doer. I do this work because I want to expand access to equitable opportunity and financial security for low-income communities and families of color. I know that countless numbers of people have had their potential limited because of their race or economic background, and I want to eliminate any barriers and systems that have created this unfortunate reality.
Hi everyone, my name is Madeline Santana. I'm the Program Associate with the Racial Wealth Divide Initiative. On the team, I'm the inquisitor, and I do this work because I believe everyone should have control over their narratives and have the opportunity to meaningfully shape their futures for the better.
Hi, my name is Mirto Karaflos. I am the Associate of Policy and Racial Wealth Equity. On the team, I am the analyzer. I do this work because low-income households and people of color deserve to have the resources and opportunity to get ahead.
Awesome. You just met a great team at Prosperity Now. And the work we do focuses on organizations of color. And sometimes we're asked, so what is a nonprofit of color and why this focus? Well, we define a nonprofit of color as an organization that is led by and serving people of color, with a board of directors with a racial makeup that represents that population as well. Why this focus? Simple. Due to historical racism and systematic inequalities, the majority of Black and Brown communities are predominantly lower income and have little access to capital and are more financially insecure. And while the nonprofit industry takes in billions of dollars annually off the creation of programs and services designed to serve this exact demographic, nonprofits are still over 80% white-led. So Prosperities Now Racial Wealth Divide Initiative in just 5 years has worked to build a national network of over 75 organizations led by people of color. Our success is rooted in our ability to create a sense of belonging and inclusion with nonprofit leaders of color who far so often are disinvested in. We anchor everything we do in building authentic relationships that honor their brilliance because they are the real curators of our mission. And our mission is to elevate their strength, their power as transformational change agents. We work with multicultural, multiracial leaders because the economic mobility challenges range and vary within ethnic groups. There are different economic realities between Latino Americans, Black Americans, Haitian Americans, Vietnamese Americans, Chinese Americans. This truth is not lost on us, nor in how we engage with the community. Geographically, our engagement spans over 14 cities in 11 states. On the West Coast, we're partnering with agencies in Seattle, Washington, Tacoma, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. In the Midwest, we're partnering with agencies in Chicago, Illinois, Des Moines, Iowa, and the Twin Cities, St. Paul, and Minneapolis. In the South, we're collaborating in 4 cities, Dallas, Texas, New Orleans, Broward County, Florida, and Miami. And on the East Coast, where we all reside and live, we partner in Baltimore, Maryland, Wilmington, Delaware, and Brooklyn, New York. Our pillars of engagement are fourfold: leadership development, direct service, policy, and advocacy. Our ultimate goal, community economic empowerment and financial resilience for communities of color.
Our partner organizations provide services focused on multiple aspects of racial economic inequities. With respect to financial health, our leaders are showing up as coaches, debt navigators, and community-controlled credit union developers, with the goal of promoting economic inclusion. In addition, they work on workforce development issues, including employment placement, skill training, and career development. They focus on entrepreneurship and small business development. In other cities, they are community development experts, serving as nonprofit real estate developers, housing advocates, including HUD-certified housing counselors and first-time homeownership educators. Youth empowerment is critical across all cities. Leaders are addressing career planning, leadership development, and college preparation. Serving the entire family through comprehensive social services and launching 2-generation models is a focus. In addition to leadership development and redesigning direct services, our work also focuses on situating leaders as policy and advocacy experts. How? By driving grassroots solutions to shift awareness about racial economic inequality, to change both administrative and legislative policies to better serve communities of color.
And we also have fun. We are small but mighty. We work hard and we play hard together, which is vital to our resilience because of the challenges we work to tackle: chronic stress and suffering from economic exclusion, deprivation, and injustice. So how do we build solutions in the face of ongoing racial and economic inequity caused by structural, systemic, and institutional forces? As great equity workers, we ground our work in data, we arm ourselves with the evidence, we understand the root causes, and we persevere by designing, developing, and testing solutions and innovations for economic mobility. Together, we truly are the ones we've been waiting for. The underlying wealth conditions of people of color are many-fold. The socioeconomic reality of racial economic inequity vulnerabilizes people to underlying health conditions. We think of this on the Racial Wealth Divide Initiative as the poverty to prosperity continuum. When we look at poverty, households of color are twice as likely to live in poverty as compared to white households. When we look at income disaggregated by race, Black workers are 1.5 times as likely to earn poverty wages, and Latinx communities are 2.2 times more likely in comparison to white workers. Debt, the way that wealth and assets are stripped from community, Black people are twice as likely to have fallen behind on bills than white workers in the past 12 months. When we look at asset poverty rates, people of color are nearly 2 times that of white households. Wealth, or the net worth of families, is 5 times greater for white households than for households of color. As COVID-19 has shown, disaggregating data shines an even brighter light on these disparities.
Many communities of color, especially Black and Latinos, are experiencing a disproportionate burden of economic hardship, illness, and death. We were able to hear how this was playing out as we dove into the various realities that our leaders were facing in their communities and in their organizations in light of the coronavirus. Organizations of color, most of which were already doing so much with limited funding, found that they had to do even more to address the desperate impact of the pandemic on people in their communities. We also heard that it was a struggle for a good number of our leaders to get information that was accurate in a timely fashion, making it difficult to navigate and take advantage of relief programs, which they so desperately needed. Thirdly, they are also trying to help immigrant and undocumented clients who virtually were not positioned to get any support, which is a population that make up a sizable portion of our leaders' clientele. Lastly, even though technology is entrenched in so much of what we do today, some organizations and residents lack or have limited access to it, including having knowledge gaps, which limits organizations' ability to provide virtual service delivery in an effective way. The voices of these leaders and their experiences are captured in our new report, COVID-19, New Crisis, Same Story, highlighting the innovations of racial economic inequality from leaders of color. This report would be a great read for practitioners looking to see how others have responded and shifted their services to address the challenges their clients face with healthcare, employment, income, housing, and education, as well as funders and other stakeholders who are interested in seeing how they could support organizations on the ground.
Over the next 5 series, we will speak to leaders in the field about innovations and solutions they're developing. Our next episode will be about health, exploring further the underlying wealth conditions that exacerbate health disparities. According to APM data, the latest overall COVID-19 mortality rate for Black Americans is 2.4 times as high as the rate for whites, and 2.2 times as high as the rate for Asians and Latinos. We heard from our leaders that there's a pandemic within a pandemic, that longstanding racial economic inequity is driving disproportionate health outcomes for communities of color. In response, our leaders are working to provide healthcare interventions as well as to effect change at the structural and systemic level to prevent these impacts, reduce harm, and cure the root causes of inequity. In episode 2, I look forward to talking with powerful leaders from Baltimore, Chicago, and Wilmington about their innovations and needs as they double down on eradicating racial economic inequity.
According to a recent Forbes study, only 12% of Black and Latino applicants were approved for PPP federal funding, despite the fact the majority of their requests for loans were for less than $50,000. In just 5 weeks, a record 26.2 million people have filed unemployment claims as the economic impact of COVID-19 continues to sweep the country. Many small business owners of color fear that they may have to close their doors permanently, and workers are frustrated and feeling the impact of a broken system. To combat employment challenges, our leaders are developing new community partnerships and discovering unique ways to shift program funding to make ends meet and provide innovative services to their clients. In episode 3, I look forward to hearing from small business and workforce development practitioners discuss how they are preparing people for a new workforce.
Many reports are coming out around how Latinos and Black Americans have been hit the hardest for job loss and pay cuts. And according to the Pew Research Center, over 70% have rainy day funds or don't have rainy day funds compared to 47% of white Americans. We heard from our leaders that there is an increase in families requesting their services, many who were already struggling pre-COVID and are just trying to have their basic needs met. In response, our leaders are working hard to provide cash assistance to families and small business owners, as well as effective change at the systemic level by reducing the harm caused by government relief inequities. So in episode 3, I look forward to talking with some high impact leaders about their innovations and needs as they work harder with less to address financial hardship by providing income relief support.
The broader and long-standing issue of housing insecurity has quickly become a dominant concern to the health of our entire nation. Pre-COVID-19 outbreak, 15 million households of color were house cost burdened. Over 70% of those households, or 10 million, were renters and 4.6 million were homeowners. We heard from our leaders that even though local, state, and federal governments have issued partial emergency eviction and foreclosure moratoriums to prevent families from losing their homes or being evicted, these emergency measures vary greatly in form of degree and protection. In response, our leaders are seeking protections for renters and homeowners. As some of these moratoriums block evictions today, the vast majority still allow for widespread eviction as soon as state and federal emergency declarations expire. In this episode, we look forward to talking with nonprofit housing advocates to explore the strategies they are using to protect families and communities who will ultimately be behind on rent and mortgage payments due to lapse in incomes.
COVID-19 has deep and far-reaching implications for education, impacting things like student loan debt, food insecurity, homelessness, access to mental health services, internet services, and childcare. We know that the racial disparities rear their heads across all of these education indicators and outcomes, like the fact that the racial wealth gap is both the biggest and has grown the fastest among those with college educations. But these disparities are also present in K-12 schooling in ways that are often understated. According to the Food and Research Action Center, the National School Lunch Program, which is the second largest national food assistance program behind SNAP, makes it possible for all school-age children in the U.S. to receive lunch every single day. About 95% of schools participate in this program. This provides meals for over 30 million children on an average day. Schools are often tasked with narrowing the resource gap for low-income students in this way and many others. When students are forced away from these institutions, whether it be from natural disaster, violence with policing, global pandemics like the likes of which we're seeing today, the so-called achievement gap reveals its true self, which is the resource gap. Our nonprofit leaders are keenly aware of this gap and are looking to bridge this divide. We've heard from our leaders the need for more flexible funding as a result of the crisis and moving forward. There's a need for funding to shift to unrestricted funding in order for these organizations to meet the client's needs. In response to these mounting needs, these community leaders are working with folks from across their ecosystem, such as with food banks, mental health services, and even tech hubs to fill these gaps. In our final episode, episode 6, join me with leaders from across the country to discuss what they're experiencing on the ground and how they're working to address this resource gap in education.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to tune in to our website for episode 2, Focus on Health, where Kat Gogenauer will moderate a session with our leaders seen here.